If you listen to the show, you already know that we cannot exist without our sponsors. They are the ones who make things happen behind the scenes. So let's acknowledge Fuji Sports. We've been working with these guys for a while now, not only as far as this podcast is concerned, but also at the RŌL Academy. We've had their gear. I personally use their gis. What a phenomenal product.
Yeah, I mean, jiu-jitsu, judo, MMA, tape, bags, anything you need for your jiu-jitsu journey, you can find at fujisports.com.
Let's talk RŌL TV. There's so much content on there. It's ridiculous at this point. But I think what is even more intriguing, as time went on during the project, we've been recording most of the events that were taking place here at RŌL Academy. At this point, I mean, we have guys like Chris Howder, Arman Fadi, Rafael Lovato Sr., and Pete the Greek. I mean, there are so many different events that we've kind of recorded it. Don't you think that's amazing? I mean, points of reflection and kind of going back for all the students to see what really happened and refresh their memory.
Yeah, I think it's great, you know, being able to go back and look at all these high-level practitioners, Octavio Cudo, like one of the names you didn't mention. And I mean, just these guys that have been doing this for so long come in, teach these amazing seminars and workshops, and it's all recorded and there for you to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to get additional savings on all this, type in code RŌL Radio at the coupon and get additional 30% off of your membership.
Nice. Go to RŌLAcademy.tv. What's up, everyone, and welcome back. If you haven't already, please remember to hit the like, share, subscribe, download, listen, and whatever other button there is, and leave us a review wherever you do listen. That ensures that we can continue bringing you the great guests and amazing content that you have come to expect. Today's guest has the distinction of being Royler Gracie's first European black belt and is now a fourth-degree black belt under the Jiu-Jitsu Global Federation. Eddie Kone joins us to discuss why old school is the best school, his appreciation for today's professional jiu-jitsu athletes, who the gatekeepers of jiu-jitsu are, and why, after becoming a fourth-degree black belt and having 26 years of experience, he still believes he hasn't learned enough. Here's the RŌL Radio with the owner and instructor of EKBJJ Eddie Kone Academy of Jiu-Jitsu, coach to numerous Bellator and UFC fighters, podcaster, and more, Eddie Kone.
Welcome to RŌL Radio.
And we are live.
Here we go.
So what's cool here, first of all, as we record this, we just getting out of the holiday vibe, right? The Christmas just passed, right? But this is releasing as a very first episode of the new year.
Yep.
So it'll be a few weeks between a recording and actual release, but we have a special guest here.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. But how was your holiday first?
It was great.
Was it?
Great. Yeah. I always have I don't want to take up too much time, but I always have a pre-Christmas freak out. Like, it's just like, we're not getting enough done. Everything's going to fall apart. I had that on Thursday morning.
Is this why you text me?
I don't remember. No, that was Christmas Eve. I had it on Thursday morning, and then I went Christmas shopping. I got some other stuff done, and everything just started getting back to the holiday spirit.
Yeah.
So Christmas Eve, Christmas Day were fantastic. Everybody's happy, healthy. So, and the kids loved their presents. I still have one that believes. So Santa was very good to him this year. So yeah, it was great. How about you?
It was good. It was good. It was peaceful. Yeah. Professor Eddie Kone in the house, by the way. Sorry to drag this out. Well, welcome to the show. How was your Christmas? How was your holiday?
Firstly, thanks for inviting me to jump in. Been watching you guys for a while, so pleasure to be here. In fact, here in the UK is still a holiday. Today we call Boxing Day. Not literally like Boxing Day, but it's just a festival part. So it gives me a break from the festivities of a non-jiu-jitsu day and allows me to talk jiu-jitsu with you guys for a while.
Well,
you have no idea how it is to be around a table with people who don't know what jiu-jitsu is or who have no idea.
I think we do know.
That was my last 2 days. And
Yeah.
oh, yes. No, just to paint a big picture, okay? My 6-year-old son, he's into Legos. I mean, he's obsessed with Legos. And so it happens that my entire family gave him these humongous airplanes, Lego airplanes. So the whole household last 2 days was Legos and airplanes, and yeah, it's kind of refreshing to get back to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, for sure.
Jiu-jitsu conversation.
Sometimes 3 days of holiday can feel like a calendar month, you know. But listen, we have to be blessed for everything that comes around that period, and it is a holiday period. Unfortunately, I never switch off, so I was
Do you
I
feel?
was at the.
I,
Go
I,
ahead,
I I
sorry.
was about to ask. Is like, do you feel the same way as I do? I feel like, I mean, like I love the family time and like I love it, but it's so hard for me to switch off. Like
Mm,
like I can't say that I was ready to come back, but it was like almost the time. Like let's wrap this up so we can get to our normal. Do you feel the same way?
mm. For me, I'm a workaholic when it comes to jiu-jitsu. I always have been, and just in general, I don't know if you do this full time, but
I do.
jiu-jitsu for me is,
We do.
yeah. So right. So this is a full-time thing for me, and I think people that have uh, a full-time job, if you like, doing what we do, whether it's discussing jiu-jitsu, training jiu-jitsu, having an academy, all of the above. When we detach from that, there is definitely something missing. And even when I go on vacation, it's the same thing. 3 days later, I'm starting to zone out a little bit. Even though throughout the whole time of that training and that process, I'm thinking I could really do with the break right now. But when we come to the break, it reverses almost. So yeah, I do feel like that a lot.
Well, holidays behind us. Glad to have you here for this conversation.
Glad to be here.
Uh, I think what's interesting about you and then I've been following you for some time now is that you are one of the old school guys in UK, aren't you? Like we briefly talked about this right before this, and sometimes old school means not such a good things because that
Good
means
thing.
we are very old. But would you consider yourself one of the, I don't know, originals, firsts, the old school guys in UK as far as jiu-jitsu is concerned?
Um, I don't know if I was one of the original, but what I can tell you is this: I was Gracie's first European black belt. So maybe the first in the sense of the Gracie lineage to become a black belt. There were others before me. Under Grandmaster Elio's side of jiu-jitsu with his family, I would say that. Yes, I am referred to as old school in the sense of the jiu-jitsu, maybe age too. But I honestly think that's a great thing. I don't think that's a negative. I actually take that as a compliment because old school is the best school to me, and it always will be. So yeah, it is what it is, and I'm very happy to have that title per se.
You say old school is a good thing. It almost sounds like a compliment in a sense. Why do
Absolutely.
you why do you feel that it's a complimentary to hear that from others? What's so refreshing about it to you?
Well, I feel that so much emphasis is now put on the new school. If you like to, people label things all the time. To me,
Hmm.
jiu-jitsu has always been very simple in my perspective. It's been distance, clinch, takedown, submit, fight from the top. It's not been anything else. Now we have a new school, a new breed of jiu-jitsu athlete, to say the least, who is more about entanglement of kimonos, who entanglement of legs and positioning and upside down inversions. And I have nothing against that, but it's new school. It was never the closed guard concepts of combat, if you like, of real fight, of the idea that we could take a 45-year-old mum who is not athletic, who does the day-to-day chores in her life, goes shopping, looks after the kids, and one day she's at a shopping mall and something happens. And she's not happy with that happening. And so she's able to disengage from that situation, escape if she needs, or engage. And if she has to engage, then she again engages in gratuitous violence if needed, not in something else that is packaged and missold as a product that isn't really a product. So these labels that people are handing out, old school, new school, I get why they do that. But my concept of a compliment when it comes to new school is just that. The old school guys are the guys who will put an elbow in your face while you're trying to lasso the guard around their legs, or potentially other things, which is not being taught or being forgotten anymore. And I have gone and trained at other schools when they've told me, Professor, here we don't strike, we don't do these kind of things, and I'm like, I know. Don't worry about that. I got
you. But isn't it? This is the fascinating part behind all of this, that what we see as new school today, or let me rephrase, what we do, it was new school at some point in the past, wasn't it? I mean, isn't all of this part of evolution of who we are as humans and what we do? And listen, I'm gonna pre-frame this in the fact of, I love old school. I am old school after 20 plus years on the mat. Like, listen, stay on top. Like, it's just, it is what it is, right? But is looking at this from a very high 40,000 foot view, isn't what we do used to be new school at some point in the past?
I think what I do and what was being done is still new school, because the new school don't have that. The evolution to the sportive idea, which is great, I enjoy it. I mean, I like to sit down and watch it and observe it, but I don't buy into that. It's not something I buy into. What we were seeing back then was an evolutionary process. And a prime example is this. Let's talk about the GOAT that we all know, who I consider someone to be the greatest exponent of jiu-jitsu to ever come out of the Gracie family, as we know, Rickson Gracie. Let's just talk about that for a second. In his early days of fighting, do you think he's doing the same things as he was then, now?
Oh, probably not. I mean, I don't know.
So there's been an evolution, but the evolution is still the same. The message hasn't changed. The message is still, how do we handle serious business should it arise? Not how do we score points in a tournament, or how do I teach, how do I alienate a 45-year-old mom or an overweight guy or an elderly man from coming to train at my academy and provide them with the service for the community? How do I do that? How do I push those away and just have the athletes come in? The problem today, I think, is people are looking to have an athletic team, which I'm not. They're looking to be the greatest athlete, which I'm not, which my students are not. And we flourish in that environment because of the teachings of the old school. Now, everything to me goes full cycle, in my opinion. We're seeing an emergence of the new school jiu-jitsu, your Gordon Ryans, your John Danaher, Def Squads, your B teams, all of these kids are growing up. They're amazing athletes. They really are. But I think when push comes to shove, the purpose of why I teach and why I learn jiu-jitsu, why I practice and study and nerd out with jiu-jitsu, is to handle real life situation and not to be butt scooting down the supermarket more after somebody should that need arise. And I know that's funny. But we will only resort to the way we train when we stress inoculate that environment. If we do not, then we can't just say, oh, today I'm going to be a tournament fighter and tomorrow I'm going to do this. And I'm not training super athletes. Super athletes are something else. I have them in my academy, but that's a different category of person, regardless of how great they are. in combat, in real life combat, and we see this in the UFC, if I go back to teaching, if I go back to fighting in the street or in that environment, and I finger jab someone in their eyes, which is taught by us in the school, which was taught to me, finger jab. When we see this in the highest elite competition in combat sport, what happens to the athlete when they take a finger jab in the eye?
Yeah, it's pause or disqualified. Yeah, absolutely.
Does that not allow the 45-year-old mum that I'm talking about to get away from that situation? Absolutely. So that's where I place my focus and values. And we're very successful, and we're very, very good at that. Fingers in the eyes.
I'm all right with that.
Well, but it's, so at the same time as we looking at this, as I'm listening to you, I feel like, and this is not a secret. I think a lot of instructors really share some of those thoughts of jiu-jitsu being placed in like these two buckets, and it's almost black and white, becoming black and white. You have these athletes which are extremely sport driven and performance driven to achieve a very specific sport oriented goal, and there's another bucket which is more of a Chris Howder talks about this quite a bit. More of a lifestyle in a sense, more of a self-defense, more of a protect yourself and use it as a tool when necessary. And if it happens, changes your life, let it be and make it accessible to many people.
Absolutely. What was jiu-jitsu originally developed for?
Oh, I mean, no secret, right? It was a self-defense, art of self-defense, right?
And even if we go back to feudal Japan and stuff like that,
mm-hmm.
It was a warrior. It was a combat sport. It was a combat system.
Sport, right?
It was
Absolutely.
a combat system. And so I sit in this middle ground where I observe a lot of things. I'm looking at a lot of things, and I'm enjoying these guys over here, these athletes training. I'm enjoying what they do, and I'm applauding them, and I'm taking absolutely nothing away from them. I'm not bashing them in any way. They're elite athletes, and they're doing what I could never do, would never, because you'd have to dedicate your whole being and your whole life to doing that, and that's commendable. But that's one aspect of a very small minority of people. To the left, we have everyone else, whatever it is, they don't feel good about themselves, they don't feel confident, they're maybe out of shape, all of the above mentioned and more. But they would never do well in that environment. And so they come to learn jiu-jitsu, but they're told or they feel even that they can't even bypass the warm-up. The warm-up neutralizes them. I'm not into that at all, because the way I was taught jiu-jitsu and the way that I transmit the message is that jiu-jitsu is for everyone, and jiu-jitsu is a self-defense art. Now, do I have athletes in my jiu-jitsu association? Absolutely. Do I have athletes that go off and win world titles and they go and win like very notable competitions? Absolutely. Do I have students in my academy that fight in the UFC? Absolutely. But that says something. That tells me something very, very specific, that it can all be brought together, that these people are not, that it's not individuals. It's to do with the community, it's to do with the instructor, it's to do with the school and how they raise the jiu-jitsu within that environment without the alienation. So looking at everything, I would still go back and say, I'm old school. Old school exists in the sense that, and will always exist because of the self-defense aspects. We do not do a warm-up of self-defense and then spend 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes per round rolling after that. We focus on a position, and that position leads to another position and another position, which is all to do with these concepts of base, connection, and movement, and understanding that you don't have to be in a fight to actually be in a fight. You can negate a lot of this stuff, but if it happens, like I said earlier, we're not going to sit on the ground and invert in the middle of a supermarket aisle. And I know it's funny, but but I've
I'm
seen it.
But listen, I'm smiling because I know there are people out there listening to this, and they will simply say that inverting is the way to go. That inverting, or whatever other ways. Like, we've had guests telling stories on this show where they witnessed things like this
Amazing.
firsthand. Somebody inverts
Amazing.
and they get clubbed in the face.
We
Like,
had Kaiki on, and his son got into a fight in a parking lot with another jiu-jitsu practitioner, and the guy went deep half. Kaiki's son hit him in the face, and he looked up and said, "You can't do that." So we're in a street fight in a parking lot. I can do whatever I want.
Kaiki is one of the guys that used to, I took some lessons from very early on when he was at the Gracie Academy.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what's up, you know, and for that someone to do that and this is the problem. This is the gripe of the jiu-jitsu community. Oh no, it's never going to happen because A, B, and C, these variables. But if you don't train like that daily, beyond the technical aspect, the mindset, beyond all of that, if you don't embody that lifestyle, as we were just saying, you're going to resort to, I don't know what, you're going to resort to the level of training that you're used to.
yeah.
And a lot of people, you know, they feel that I'm controversial talking bad about. I'm not. I'm absolutely not. I'm actually trying to educate them through the style of jiu-jitsu we have, because the thing that really grates on me the most is, come and learn self-defense jiu-jitsu, and they pay for these ads that they're spewing out through social media. They go there and lesson 1 is spider guard.
Mm-hmm.
Happens daily, right?
Of course. Lesson 2 is inverted saddle footlock. With no concept of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You know, and it's crazy. It's crazy to me that we as a jiu-jitsu community accept that. We accept that, and you know, we kind of buy into that. Not me, but others buy into that, and they think that's what jiu-jitsu is. And then they travel this journey for 3 months, get broken, realize it doesn't work, or that they cannot invert, they cannot do these positions. The instructor pays them no attention because they're not an athlete. They're never going to bring medals to or whatever it is. And they leave jiu-jitsu. They just go away. And then someone tries to educate them on jiu-jitsu, and they don't want to listen. They just shut down, and, you know, that's that.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, listen, if you were in that position, your reaction probably would be the same. I mean, if you had a bad experience, why would you listen to somebody who's telling you something? Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
I think as instructors, we have a great responsibility not only to teach our students, but also to educate them so they know what the realistic expectations are. And if those are set incorrectly, I mean, how would students succeed? I mean,
of course.
That's a failure from the beginning.
It goes much deeper than that. I mean, I had a student come to the academy very recently. He was a black belt, and he comes in and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've been training a long time." Visiting student came in. "I've been training a long time, blah blah blah, and I've been to some of the CTCs, you know, the Hiron and Henna CTCs." And he said, "I'm not really impressed." And I said, "Great, welcome." And he said, "I'm not really impressed by what I saw." And I said, "Really? Why not?" And he said, "Well," he gave his reasons, which I'm not going to repeat. And I said, "Okay, that's great." I said, "But what you have to understand is a lot of the CTCs don't have a hands-on with the instructors. They come through a rank, they go and get tested. They're over there for a period of time. They come out of that environment. Yes, there's input and visiting instructor, but they don't have a constant professor that they can reach out to and ask questions and all the rest of it." And I said, "Oh, here's very different. It just so happens, you know, you've come into a school which is, you know, we follow the concepts of the Gracie family and the teaching mythology behind that." And he's, "Oh, I'm interested." So a little way in, we glove up and we start to train, and he's like, "Whoa, I've never done this style of training." And he's a black belt. And I said, "Okay, look, you're not going to get hurt. That's the first thing. You're a black belt, you have some jiu-jitsu." And he was like, "Okay, great, let's train." We begin training with this guy. And off of the bat, we start standing, we start to strike. He literally sits down on the ground, grabs the collars, and tries to close guard. So he successfully does it. He closes the guard. The person training with him starts to strike him lightly. I'm talking about there was no power in there at all. So he starts to defend himself. And in fairness to him, he did okay. He didn't do too bad. And then as he progressed through the training, he started to do certain things. And I said, man, these things are going to open you up to all kinds of stuff. After the training session, he comes to me and says, man, I really like that. I'm going to go back to my school and introduce that style of training. And I said, great, you should. And here's how I would do it. And I kind of broke it down for him. But it was really fascinating to me that someone of that level has come in and never exposed himself to anything than gi grabbing. And he was literally lapel and sleeve while the guy's striking him. There was no kind of defense of the face. It was literally lapel and sleeve, trying to make a scissor sweep, trying to hit bumps, which is not going to work in that environment, especially jiu-jitsu on jiu-jitsu. But the moral behind that is I was surprised because I've heard stories like this, and this was very recent, in the last 3 months. And yeah, I was just very surprised that he's never been exposed to that in his own school or in his academy. He's never, and he's apparently been around training a lot of places. So yeah.
Well, and then, I mean, in the big picture, imagine how many individuals are there who are in similar situations.
Absolutely.
And the big question in my mind is, who dropped the ball here? Like, whose responsibility is this? Is this that person who trained for 10, 15, 20 years, however long? Or is it really the environment that he's coming out of? And these are these instructors who've never exposed them. You know, and we can go even deeper. What if these instructors, they teach him, they were never exposed to this kind of philosophy, and they just teach what they teach, and they are probably very, very good at this. They just don't see the other side of all of this.
It kind of goes back to what I'm thinking right now is rules of engagement, where you go to an academy or wherever you're learning, and let's say they're more sport focused. They're never going to be told to bring their hands up to protect themselves in that way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody's necessarily dropping the ball as long as everything is explained ahead of time, as long as everything is up front ahead of time.
Gary, you're playing right into my hands, but keep going. I love it.
But hold on. The question that comes up here, though, is often is then can you still call it jiu-jitsu?
But
right, I keep coming back. I'm thinking of somebody you probably know, Chris Burns, who, you know, if I can touch your face while you're doing it,
you just go ahead.
Is it really jiu-jitsu?
Yeah,
you know,
go Chris.
Yeah,
yay,
and
Chris.
I come back and forth with I go back and forth with this because I'm a diplomatic person. I'm a nice person. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. But then at the same time, you know, so like you said, do you present it their first classes? It's the number one self-defense martial art out there, or do you present it as, well, you know, we're a big competition school, and that's what we do here. So I don't know, and you know, who's the gatekeeper and who's allowed to say yes and no. I know it's not me because most of the people in both of those factions can put me in my place. But so I defer. You know, I guess I'm just raising the question.
Yeah.
That's Professor, a great question.
What do you think?
It's a great question. When we talk about the gatekeepers, who are they? Like, point them out to me.
Yeah.
We can only refer back to those who taught us.
Yeah.
And the message that was given by the messenger. I've been very fortunate in my journey to probably, I would actually claim this, to train with most of the Gracies from Elio's side, including Elio himself. So the message hasn't been diluted. The message has always been the same with each of them. With each of them comes something else. Royce, tall, lean, adopted his jiu-jitsu for him. Royler, the main influence on my jiu-jitsu, apart from being one of the greatest to ever do it in the sports arena, did it in MMA, did it in Pride, did it in Nogi, did it like complete savage. And you know, I was around those guys in '96 when the swords were being sharpened. They wasn't even sharp yet because those guys were still evolving. So super sharp, but never forgot that main context of what it was. Hickson the same, Helson, Holker, all of these guys Horion, the older guys. Then comes the second generation, you know, and the third generation, and so on and so forth. But if you go back and look at the history of all of those guys, they've created the whole family are just fighters. It was people think they come from a bowing society of martial art, and these guys were out on the street kicking people's butts left and right. Oh, you're a tough guy, right? How do you handle this slap to the face? Now let me see what you're gonna do. You know, the guy. You know, when these challenge matches were being developed, the messengers of those challenge matches were actually going in there, maybe even with arrogance, but Horion in the US was going into karate schools and saying to people, let me show you something interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's the message I want to propagate. Now, I'm not a gatekeeper. I don't know who they are, as I was just saying, but what it says to me is this. What evolved out of that evolution has become so far from what it originally was that we literally are looking at two totally different things, which I'm okay with. You know, I'm totally okay with that. But I just feel that, like Gary was saying, Gary played right into my hands with this. Gary, he said, well, why are they not being taught this stuff? Like, what's going on here? And I don't know what's going on. I honestly don't know. We have more black belts now being produced and coming out of jiu-jitsu with these concepts and these ideas, and people like you mentioned, Chris Burns and Scott and Hickson's guys, and these guys, I believe, and you know, I'd throw myself into that equation too. We are propagating a message of old school jiu-jitsu. Now, when we say old school, I think it means something different for a lot of people. Why I said to you at the beginning was old school is the best school. The techniques of jiu-jitsu haven't really changed. The guard is always going to be the closed guard. The rear naked choke is always going to be the rear naked choke. The arm lock is always going to be the arm lock. The difference comes when we take out of our mind that this is a do or die situation. And by me putting someone in a guard or the ground clinch, as we know it, and allowing them to do certain things while we're looking for this perfect collar grip or this sleeve grip or this inverted sweep, will open us up to being beaten to a bloody mess or worse.
Mm-hmm.
So the mindset is what's changed. Now, the evolutionary process of these techniques is amazing. It really is. Some of the stuff that we're seeing is unbelievable. But if you get an out of shape guy, 50 years plus, who loves jiu-jitsu, who cannot do that and comes to the school, and you try and get him to do that, he pops his vertebrae in the first lesson. There's something fundamentally wrong with jiu-jitsu at that point. And it suddenly starts to become an elitist sport, not a martial combat system, or as I refer to it, martial science. It's become something totally different. And that's the message that's being lost. And slowly, the gatekeepers, as you call them, are being forgotten. And we're becoming guardians of a combat system which is dying, you know, over the years. And I'm so happy for the guys like Chris and all these other guys now that are coming out and actually saying, listen, we don't give two hoots about what you're doing over there. We know what we're doing here, and we know what we're trying to do here. And we will continue doing that with everything we have. And that is the message that we will propagate.
Yeah, and we did have Chris and Scott on the show, and what a phenomenal conversations. One of the main reasons why I asked you to be here, to be honest, because I truly enjoy hearing that as the sport is evolving, because as not even sport, like I feel like it's a snowball effect, essentially. It's already in motion. There is nothing we can do to stop this, because there is well, let's be honest. I mean, it is very appealing to general population what is happening, right? So stopping
Absolutely.
that, it's impossible. But I think the educational factor, which is being ignored right now, what really jiu-jitsu is. Why was
Let
it?
let me tell you this, just
Yeah,
real quick before you progress. I did some research recently on social media,
yeah.
and Gordon Ryan, when he puts something out, he generates a huge amount of traction. Do you know the video that generated almost as much traction as one of his highest viewed videos? It was 2 coral belts recently in a competition. 2 coral belts in a competition.
I know which video you're talking about, yeah.
Right. If you go through the comments, people are saying, oh, who are these old guys competing? Blah, 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 blah. There's all this debate, this rebuttal going on. And I kind of sat back and I thought, these guys, they must have been training jiu-jitsu for years. Like, I'm talking about coral belt, right?
Decades.
We're talking
decades.
Easily.
Yeah.
The respect that people were not showing for them, like, granted, you know, maybe they don't teach, maybe they don't have a social media presence, but the fact that they came onto the mat at their level and went out and did a 5-minute bout, and they were very respectful and courteous. And if you see, you know the video I'm talking about, the respect that was seen between those 2 athletes was unbelievable. Had more respect on that tatami than I've seen in most of these new schools competitions from the years that I've seen them compete. It was unbelievable.
Honestly, it's very refreshing, in my opinion, to see somebody at that age with that wear and tear, because we need to be honest about this. I mean, once you cross that 45, 50 bracket there, that wear and tear is
unbelievable.
Unbelievable, right? We don't move the same way. And then you're putting yourself in this vulnerable position of being exposed to thousands, if not millions, to compete against somebody else who is, well, they're not going to give you a pat on the back or give you a hug. I mean, no, right? I think, like, my head goes off. Like, this is where I bow. This is where I step back and say, somebody needs to acknowledge this, because this goes above and beyond. This is amazing.
Absolutely. I apologize. I cut you off as well.
You're fine.
I wanted to make it.
No, you're fine. Gary,
I was just wondering if this is a generational thing. If this is, we're living in this social media time,
popularity and famous.
I think if you watch basketball, older basketball videos that are on social media, it's the same thing. They would never last today. They would never this and that. But I always look at it as, well, they didn't have the advantages that you guys or athletes have today. LeBron James is able to train a much different way than Larry Bird was. So I always take that type of stuff into consideration. But then you also like the social media thing where people can dump on other people and make these types of comments. Is it a generational thing where these same people who are saying these things 20 years from now will be educated?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same thing, man. There's what do they call it? These trials by social media and all of this stuff that happens.
But listen, I think people are people. People will always talk trash. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, look at Hicks and Gracie fighting. He talked trash. It was part of this, right? Like, Hoyes walks into the octagon, and there is a certain level of trash talking. Like, it always took place, but I think it's magnified now because of social media. Everything gets blown out of proportion,
right?
And everybody is a hero behind the keyboard. I think that's just my perspective. Everybody's a hero. Everybody wants to say what they want to say, And I think that this is just a consequence of the society that we live in today. Like it or dislike it, this is what it is today. And unfortunately, everything gets magnified, and I don't know. I have a lot of mixed feelings about all of this. We definitely live in a very interesting world today. I will say that.
And I think it's going to become more interesting in the sense that, like you rightly said, everyone can be somebody behind the keyboard, but I for all the love I get, there's always going to be the balance of hate or whatever it is. But I absorb it. It's like, okay, great. I'm not a hard person to find. When people have these beefs, if you like, or these whatever it is, listen, I'm not a hard guy to find. I'm not a tough guy. I'm a nobody in the grand scheme of things. But I'll say this, it's the age-old thing of, if it empowers somebody out there to do something, they will do that. They will go off on a tangent and do whatever they feel. The same people that I've seen comment and I've spoken to them, they've come up and asked me, "Oh, can we take a picture? Can we do this? Can I come and whatever you want." And you know what, guys? I really live a very closed circle. I don't have a lot of friends, if you like. But the friends I have, they're kind of friends that I want around me. Everyone else, they end up hanging out with you, traveling a certain journey, and then somehow they show their true colors. It could be in 1 year, it could be in 10 years. In a nutshell, they become a pain in the rear end, or they become a dick, really. And then I'm not a person who holds on to those relationships. I cut them off. I'm just, you're out of this. And so that's why nowadays I keep a very tight circle, keep it very small. I'm blessed to have the friendships I have. I'm blessed to have the students and people that want to learn jiu-jitsu that I teach. I don't believe that they're my students. I believe they're students of jiu-jitsu or a certain field of jiu-jitsu, and that relates to them. They come and learn that jiu-jitsu from me, great. I'm the conduit between the jiu-jitsu they need and what they want to learn. And I also tell them they're free to go and train wherever they want to. But in my house, under my rules, these are the guidelines and the jiu-jitsu that I teach. Someone was asking me recently about some new guard that they'd seen, and I said, listen, to be honest, I don't know what that guard is. And for me to spend time educating myself on that would detract from what I'm trying to accomplish, my mission in jiu-jitsu, and that doesn't fit with that mission. And he was shocked. He was like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "Absolutely." I said, that, but if you want to go and learn that, I'm not going to tell you a school to go and learn that from, but they're out there. Find somewhere, learn it, if that's what you really want to do.
Yeah, I even, as you were speaking, I recall actually part of the conversation with Chris Burns, and he was saying that somebody was asking him a question, one of his students was asking a question about something very specific, and he goes, honestly, I have no, and this happens, I think, to every instructor at some point or another, but he essentially says, listen, I have no idea what you're talking about. My question is, are you controlling the space? Because if you are controlling the space, the problems are resolved. And oftentimes we have these core principles in jiu-jitsu, and we really focus on understanding, not just memorizing, but really understanding on a deeper level what they mean and how they operationally work. The life becomes much, much, much easier, and we can, solve problems. No?
Agreed. I mean, we see it a lot. We see black belts, or we see people rise through the ranks, become a black belt, and they've arrived. Like, here I am. I'm a black belt. I know everything. That's the context of what I'm hearing, like what I see. And I've had it with people rise through the ranks, become black belts, ego develops, and then they don't fit with me anymore. They're not here anymore. And I'm so grateful for that. You wouldn't believe,
Yeah.
At the 4th degree black belt that I am, after 26 years of training, I don't know enough to consider myself a master of what I'm doing. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm now in my car. I know what the gears do. I know what the indicator does. I know what the washers do. I'm yet to get into a rally race yet to figure out if I really know what's up. But I can tell you that I know more than average Joe who walks around the street, and I potentially know more than any thug, any willing thug that would want to impose himself on me or anyone that I'm around at that time. And that's what I'm sharing right now. When I get to that rally driver driving skill set, we can have another discussion about that then. But these black belts that grow up and they kind of leave, and then they're like, I know everything that guy knows, or I know everything that person knows. Or, no, you don't. You don't know the half, and you know why they don't know the half. Because of what we were talking about in the beginning, the evolutionary progress. My jiu-jitsu isn't the same as it was 1 year ago. It isn't the same as it was 6 months ago, because of the constant upgrading of information and understanding the deeper concepts of the positions that I'm already familiar with. And that's important.
Yeah. I wish more people thought about that way, and I wish more people had that acknowledgement to themselves, kept themselves honest in that
Yep.
aspect. I think not only jiu-jitsu world or jiu-jitsu community, but just world in general would be a better place if we
Yeah.
stayed that honest with ourselves. We pivoted in the beginning. We 45 minutes in, but this entire thing we pivoted into this deeper philosophy conversation. But what we did skip, and I do want to go back to this. How did this all start for you? And I love this question. I really love dipping into the historical part of who we are, because in my mind, who we are today is a post product of what we've gone through in our past. So, in a very simplistic way, do you remember your very first day on the mat?
I can remember the very first day that I was exposed to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu via VHS.
For those of you who don't know what VHS is like a tape in a plastic box that you put in another plastic big box and it goes on TV.
Correct.
What's tape?
It's like a huge cassette like this.
Oh, cassette, that's it.
Right?
We just lost half of the people listening to this. But I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, so I was exposed to this, and I was working in a factory at the time. It's like a very basic box making factory. And one of the guys came in with this VHS. He was like, "Hey, have you seen this?" I was like, "No." He goes, "I'm going to show you this." So we went at lunch. He shows me this thing. And at that moment, at that time, I'd already had some previous striking martial arts experience. And I saw this and I was like, man, this is interesting. Not only is it interesting, but I've got to learn this. I want to learn what this thing is. And so...
Who was on the tape?
Royce.
Yeah,
you have to understand, when Royce came out, I was like, this guy is going to be killed. And this is a joke. Like, what is going on here? And so he comes out, obviously, and he just decimates everyone. The beauty of it was, he wasn't doing jiu-jitsu, which I was familiar with. I'd seen Japanese jiu-jitsu and all of judo and this and that. And Royce comes out and he's punching people in the groin. He's kneeing them. He's using elbow strikes in the back of their head, all kind of headbutting people, pulling hair.
Is this one of the challenges that you're watching? What's on the tape?
No. This was UFC 1.
Oh, this is UFC 1. Okay.
So then on further, there was no internet. Remember, no YouTube. Internet was very early on, and I was like, man, all I knew is they were from Brazil and they were called the Gracie family, Royce. All I knew was Royce. So I go home and talk to a couple of friends, and I was like, man, let's wrestle. I'd seen this thing. Let's wrestle. I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
You know everything by now. You watch the tape and you know everything.
Exactly. In 30 minutes, I absorbed everything. And shortly after, I realized my friend circle became extremely small. So that was my first kind of interaction to it. And then, growing up, being in the neighborhood I grew up in, people were like, oh, that's that martial arts nutcase who runs around, trying to wrestle people. But then fast forward a few years, and in the UK, we had a couple of schools which were open. One of them was near London Bridge, if I remember. And written on the door was Crazy Jiu-Jitsu. And, the guy obviously couldn't spell Gracie. So, we assumed... we assumed...
Funny.
I only went there one time, but assumed that it was. But when I went there, wasn't nothing like what I'd seen. So then, as time progressed, there was a gentleman in the UK. I actually went to Brazil first to find Royce, and I went to Copacabana, and I actually visited Carlson Gracie's original school. In Copacabana, and eventually one of the hotel porters said to me, man, look, I train at this school, blah, blah, blah. I'm a blue belt. You should come over there. And I went to Gracie Almeida. And I never looked back since. The most unbelievable experiences you could ever imagine that I had in there. My first day on the mat, I've come from London. I'm feeling myself a little bit. I'm young, in my prime, done a little bit of striking. And so it was the lunchtime class, and I went in, and it was wall to wall in the main room of black belts and others training. And I go in there, and I'm seeing Hileman, now who I obviously know who he is, Holker, Megaton Diaz, Saulo, all of these icons. To me, they were just like, there was one American guy, and I remember him very well, and he was like, "Oh, welcome," the translator guy. And he's like, "Oh, you're going to love it here, lunchtime training." I never felt so demoralized in my whole life. Those humbling experiences, which have happened since then. But you come from a country, and this was the mindset then, you come from a country which isn't third world, where you take everything for granted. You feel like, 25 years old or, 24 years old, you can take on the world. You're in this beautiful place in Brazil with palm trees and the sun shining and the most beautiful women walking around. You go to this academy, not one woman on the mat. You're looking around thinking, what's going on here? Like, no women trained. There's no women training. No women actually allowed when the guys were training there. And suddenly you're put through. There was no beginner class that I remember. It was literally on the mat and go, middle of the day, training. And
all right, we gotta dig deeper into this for a moment. So you step into this room. Like, I want to get in your head. You step into this room. Give me a number. How many black belts are there on the mat?
So I would estimate around 20. And that's being kind to the numbers that are on there.
Okay. Most of them, you mentioned some big names, right? Are you realizing what is happening around you when you step into the room? Like, do you know that these are the pioneers of what you are about to do in the future as your life, as your life profession?
Let me tell you this. 1996 was the first CBJJ tournament. They were preparing for that. Hileman was fighting in that.
So you are a ragdoll before that, right?
They are spitting fire in that academy. and I've gone in there. Hoist Gracie, anyone? Hoist Gracie, So no, have a gi. And I have a picture. The gi is like down to my knees, this kimono jacket. The pants I had to roll up on the top. And they're tying the belt, right? So you can imagine what happened. Left, right, upside down. Blah. Now, granted, I didn't train with the black belts. I didn't train because they were doing their own thing, but I got to train with the others. There were white belts, there's some blue belts, there were a lot of blue belts, a lot of people there training. I didn't get to train with them. But one thing I did notice immediately was I was moving like I was in some kind of tumble dryer, upside down, like just being spun around. When I looked over at the black belts or even the brown, they were moving incredibly slow. So watching that process was like, either I'm moving seriously fast or I've got concussion here, because those guys, they're not moving. So I came out of the academy afterwards, and there's a place called Bibi Sukus over there, which is where all the guys would go for juice and stuff like that. And I remember sitting there saying, what just happened? Like, that was nothing like I've experienced before. I'm a young, fit, athletic guy, nothing like I'd been through. I have to go back. So it wasn't the fact that I was going back to learn jiu-jitsu. In a weird way, having the crap beat out of you with people with a smile on your face is something completely different. They're trashing you with a smile on their face. And as we know, Brazilians have the most amazing smile. They're great culture of people. And I just kept going back and back and back. And eventually they told me Hoist wasn't there. Hoist was in Torrance.
No.
Yeah.
But I made it my home. And God bless the people out there. Each one of them were great. They're great guys. But no, I didn't know the icons that I was in the room at the time. I didn't know I was stepping into the lion's den. I didn't know some of these guys until many years later emerged as champions from there. Saulo was unbelievable champion, came out of there. Megaton came out of there. Vinny Magalhaes came out of there. Huge names were coming out of there, and still are today. There's still guys emerging out of there. And so, yeah, I was hooked from that point on. I remember going back and forward,
Would you consider that day, that moment, as fundamentally impactful on your life as a consequence? What was happening after that?
Man, more than impactful. I was just saying, I have goosebumps reminding myself. Was it impactful? It was almost like I'd been reborn. It was not just the techniques, but the camaraderie, the feeling, the happiness, the smiling, the people who know what they are capable of don't need to show that. They don't need to be that aggressive. Because when we break this down, to the DNA of what we're doing, we're rearranging each other's body parts on a daily basis, like breaking necks, snapping arms, taking feet off. We are literally dissecting the human anatomy. And when I think about it like that, I think to myself, man, there's no need to walk around with an angry face and a tough guy look, because just because we can doesn't mean we should. And I think that's one of the greatest things I took from that training session. And I'm launching a new website soon, and Hileman's given me a very nice testament on that. I have a few of the Gracies giving me some testaments, but Hileman's one in particular is very nice. And he actually says Ed has spent a long time traveling back and forth to Brazil and America, taking lessons from me and my family. And what he's doing is amazing, and he knows the jiu-jitsu that we know. And it was a really nice testament from Hileman, 20 plus years after being around them for so long.
I mean, that has to feel good to have that kind of acknowledgement from, Hileman himself. I mean, it has to feel good inside, no?
I think better than good. I mean, Hileman's an incredible person. He's an incredible teacher. He has an iconic status. Hileman's very reserved, but he's also super sharp, super on point. He knows what's up. He knows when someone's taking advantage or when someone's not towing the line, if you like. He's fully aware. Phenomenal instructor of jiu-jitsu. I mean, how could he not be? And when people ask me, why did you align with Hileman? And I'm going to come back to your point. Why did you align with Hileman? And I said, listen, I met Royce. Royce is 6'2". He's incredibly flexible with what he does, but I don't have that height. Some of the stuff Royce does, I cannot execute. Rickson, incredible mind, incredible ideas and understanding of jiu-jitsu, probably the most profound understanding that we know of. But when I encountered Hileman's the same size. If you look at pictures of me and Hileman, almost the same size, the same body frame, the same methods, really. So I knew I could do what he does. I couldn't learn from Roger Gracie. I couldn't. 6'4", complete athlete. When it's time to go, he could supplement power all day. I don't have that supplementation. And then bypass all of those and meeting Grandmaster Elliot and watching what he did. Now, you have to understand, I never sparred with him, and I never saw that because it was in the later years of his life. But what I saw him was the correctional aspects of jiu-jitsu, the defensive aspects of mount me, try and choke me, this and this. being first off the bat and not making a mistake in jiu-jitsu. Going back to your point, taking all of that from what I saw and seeing it on the first lesson, that's the feeling I'm trying to transmit to you. A feeling of nothing else, and not knowing who they actually were because I knew Royce, to then come back to the UK and research them and figure out that all the family are dangerous. All the brothers are a nightmare. And I'd just been in the room with these guys. And they'd killed me 100 times with a smile on their face.
I know, right? This is the, as I'm listening to your story, as you're sharing these phenomenal parts of your life, many would, one, envy you for the experiences that you found yourself in. Two, others would pay endless amount of money to be in your shoes. And the humbleness of your experience is so radiating here.
But I think the same thing would go for nowadays with your Gordon Ryans. People flock to see this. And remember that the Gracies back then, I came across by complete accident. I just happened to meet someone who took me to a place to train, which I fell in love with from that moment. And didn't know what I was. That's the amazing thing for me. I didn't know what I was falling in love with. And then the continuation of the friendship and the building of the RGDA, like here in the UK, being Royle's first European black belt. Like that to me is like, that's a big, big thing, you know, going on to receiving, you know, having Royle here for the first time, exposing Royle to what I was doing here and having him acknowledge, man, oh, you're doing a great job. I put a video clip up on my Instagram recently of Royle talking about it. He said, I'm here in the UK, and we're talking over 15, 20 years ago. I'm here in the UK to open the new school. It's run by a good friend of mine, Eddie Kone. He's a guy who's back and forward in Brazil, collecting the techniques and the information and coming back. And those accolades would spend a lifetime more than any medal I would ever win, than anything I would ever do, that one of the founding fathers of what we know as Gracie Jiu-Jitsu today recognizes and acknowledges my work. And these are not just things that have been plucked out of the air. These are video testament. These are testament that have been written and sent to me. So yeah, it's huge for me. But I don't get caught up in that. That's something I'm not caught up in. That's a moment in time that happened, and now we move on. We move forward. And my mission and my movement goes beyond that. That's what I'm trying to give to the students that frequent my academy. That's what I'm trying to give to the community of Jiu-Jitsu. And that's what I'm trying to preserve for Jiu-Jitsu. That at that moment, things are not the same as it was anymore. I know that. And to live in that era would be crazy. But the Jiu-Jitsu is. It just so happens it's being washed out by everything else.
Well, and again, all these little things, all these moments, and the fact that you walked into the academy, and the fact that, you know, you got destroyed by blue belts or lower belts, you know, and walking with a smile on your face and sitting.
Not even destroyed, decimated, you know, like literally.
You know what? That reminds me. I don't remember who said this to me, but somebody told me this a while back, a long time ago, and it stuck with my mind. He said, Jiu-Jitsu is the only activity where people come in with a smile on their face, they get beat up, they get destroyed, they leave with the smile on their face, and they pay for it. Like, this doesn't happen anywhere else.
And,
you know?
And to add even more to that, they return the next day too.
To do it over again. Yeah, absolutely.
I was trying to look through our old episodes. We had somebody who had a very similar experience to yours, but they went the other way. They were very discouraged afterwards. They were already a blue belt when they went down there. Got handled, left, and was like, that's it, I'm done. I'm not doing jiu-jitsu anymore. But then had 3 days to kill and didn't know anybody and didn't speak the language. And they were like, well, I got these 3 days to kill. I might as well go back. And by the third day, they were like, no, this is it. This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. So it's cool.
You know the other crazy thing, like recently the academy moved since 1952. It then changed over to a new venue, and I was so sad because I haven't been back there for 8, maybe 10 years to that academy. Because Hiler's now living in San Diego, and I'd been going out there to see Hiler and train over there in LA and so on and so forth. But it was a sad day for me because I can remember climbing those stairs, and every day I'd be at the bottom of those stairs thinking, why?
Well, and yet here we are, right? Yeah, here we are. Life is so beautiful and so amazing.
How blessed are we that, 3 guys just having a conversation through the power of jiu-jitsu, which all came from one place within the realms of what we know.
I know.
And ends up here. We never met. We're just having a discussion. Gone through very similar things, almost everything, especially that Gary's saying, because Gary kind of backed me up on a lot of things. That we've gone through, and you talk to any jiu-jitsu guy, there's going to be similar things. Went to the academy, first day, got decimated.
Yeah,
smiles on everyone's face, goes back, keeps going. Suddenly realizes from white belt to first stripe, like, man, this is achievable. Like, I can do this. When I was training over there, I didn't see stripes on belts. It would be belt jumps, and you go there and you're in the mix of this whole thing, and seeing Elio, seeing Euler, seeing Hoist, seeing Hickson, Helson, Holker, all of these guys in the, and not realizing the icons you're around. So, all of these names, and then fast forward 10 years, and I remember when Saulo released the DVD, I think it was, he releases this, and I was like, hold on a minute. I was training with this guy, and then you're seeing him emerge into this world champion. And you're like, hold on a minute, like all of these, and I'll go back through my pictures and I see them. I'm in the background, this gringo, like, I'm here having a great time. These kids, that's all they have, that's all they know. Yeah. And in the meantime, Gracie Umaita is rising like a powerhouse, like Alliance and Gracie Barra. They're rising through these powerhouses. One thing remained the same: self-defense.
Yeah. Alliance
rose up. No mention of self-defense for many years. There's Fabio Gagel as their general, as their leader, and Romero Cavalcanti, I believe. Yeah, and then Gracie Barra. I was in the era training, and again, there's pictures on my Instagram with Marcio Fetosa, who's not many people know who he is today. One of the golden boys of Gracie Barra, I was right there in the Gracie Barra headquarters with Holeta, Half Gracie, and all of these, because to me, jiu-jitsu was jiu-jitsu, and I'd go to Bahia in Brazil, day off, or go see the guy, go train here. No problem, like nothing. I just green card to everywhere, going around, training here and there, Colson, Gracie, no issues, Nowadays, it's totally different. I'm not seeing the self-defense anywhere. No one talks about the self-defense unless you're from a specific lineage, although I have seen some schools releasing now a self-defense program, but that's debatable. When I look at it, I don't know what I'm looking at, but yeah, I understand it. They're paying lip service to that that thing. Can you imagine if I released an instructional DVD? Professor Eddie Kone teaches the inverted Z guard. Man, everyone will fold their book, throw the book away, and be like, he's done.
You never know. You might be a millionaire after that one. I mean, you just never know which direction that's going to go.
I mean, that would make great marketing on and great debate on social media.
Yeah.
Oh, the keyboard warrior.
What does this guy know about? Hey,
Yeah,
but no, it's
that's the beautiful part behind the world that we live in today. But
for sure.
but listen, as I'm listening to all of you, and more I listen to you, I gotta tell you, you're a lucky cat. You're a lucky cat. Like there is no way around this. Like the experiences that you've been through your entire life and the opportunities that present themselves because of where you found yourself and what you did and the approach that you took to life, and the embracing of what was presented in front of you really put you where you are today. And I do believe that without guys like you, jiu-jitsu would be very different today than what it is. And I really truly do appreciate everything that you do, because I think we need more people like that. Yeah, we need more people like you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, but I'm what's the word? I'm a moment in time. This is how I see the guys who we've discussed, and there are many out there. We're moments in time, and it's unfortunate that there aren't many like that. That especially in the UK. I mean, I can't think of anyone here in the UK that has or that does the program that I honestly can't. Even black belts that are no longer with us don't have the program we have because the evolution process of the self-defense program. And that's not kind of playing my own trumpet or whatever it is, but it's a real thing. You probably saw that I just now became part of the Jiu-Jitsu Global Federation, and I'm heavily pushing that. And being endorsed and recognized or certified by Hickson's organization as a black belt and as an academy that propagates the message is a huge thing for me. And I intentionally didn't push out our latest academy becoming a recognized academy until today, because it was a monumental part of my students' hard work, the academy's hard work, and also my commitment to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and Jiu-Jitsu. I wanted to make it a special thing for the students, especially that subscribe to the Jiu-Jitsu we're teaching. And I think on the point you're saying, it's sad. And I do have black belts actually come and take private lessons from me for the self-defense. And there's always this little quote that goes with it. Oh, I'm here to take a private lesson for self-defense, but please no photographs, and don't tell my instructor that I train here.
Isn't that sad? Isn't that sad? I don't know. Like,
yeah,
on a couple different levels.
Yeah. At the same time, speaks volumes about you. So that's how I look at it. We are here to change lives, and in some ways you do too. So
man, we're here to serve. We're here to serve the community and share what we have. And I'm very grateful that jiu-jitsu came into my life and the blessings that come with it, especially for those students that are around me. And there are many of them, and the academies that I have all over the place. I'm very grateful, even to you guys, for giving me this space here. Because in the grand scheme of things, outside of jiu-jitsu and what I do, no one knows who I am, and I like that. No one,
You're being very humble right now. I think you made your footprint around within the jiu-jitsu community. Your humble approach, magnifies all of this. But your contribution is unquestionable in my mind, at least. But yeah, I tell Gary all the time. Anytime Gary is cranky or he's grumpy, I tell him we have the best jobs in the world. Like we have the best jobs in the world. There's no reason to complain.
Yeah, we do.
Not a story for now, but I got a good grumpy story for you. Don't let me forget.
Man, I could tell you a couple as well. I could tell you some, the happiest places on the map.
Yeah. Professor, we've been at this for over an hour. We want to be respectful of your time. But listen, before we start wrapping this up, what we do at the end of every episode, we have a question for you from a previous guest. Okay. He had no clue who will be answering that question. So think of it as he asked that question completely in blind. Gary's going to ask you the question, and always generates an interesting end to the episode and to the conversation.
Yeah. So this is from the last guest of 2023. This is Rob Hileman. I think I know how the answer is going to go for this one. But he wants to know, how do you feel about the explosion of no gi, and why do you think the gi is still important?
Interesting question. Gi, no gi, center line, me. It's one and the same. They are one and the same. If you train, if you overlook the gi, then you definitely incomplete if you don't practice with the gi. So I would say, what was the question again? Just to remind me, the last part of that.
The last part is, why do you think the gi is still important?
The gi, if you want to be technical with the gi, if you want to become technical, you train in the gi. I tell this story to a lot of people. In all of Royler's MMA fights, he never took off the gi until 2 weeks before. And, that will tell you something, because everyone considers Royler to be the most technical of the Gracie family when it comes to sports competition. If he takes off the gi, then he is still an ADCC multiple world champion. That should tell you something. Gi is very relevant, very valuable, especially if you're training with self-defense in mind. Super important.
Let me ask you a pivot question off of this. This topic often comes up, and I'm curious on your perspective on this. What is more challenging for a student, to make a conversion from gi to no gi, or the opposite way?
If they're learning jiu-jitsu, why would they have to make it? Why would it be so complex? Why would there be a conversion?
This is why I asked you. This is exactly why I asked you. Because again, this separation oftentimes takes place, right? People pick no gi, pig, no da, da, da. And
let me tell you like this.
Go ahead.
I often lay down and look up at the sky and the beautiful stars and all the rest of it. When the sun is in the sky, or the twilight and dusk and dawn, is it a different sky or is it the same sky?
It's the same sky.
It's the same. It just looks different,
right? And that's what we're looking through. That's the filters and the labels people have given to this. It's the same thing. It will look different, but it's the same sky.
I love it.
I love this. I love it. I don't even want to say anything else. This is brilliant.
You opened up a door for me, a little window for later in the day. I'm gonna pick on Thomas about something. So
here he comes.
He'll get back to you on this next conversation that we're about to have. We don't have time for it right now.
It's super cool.
All right, Professor, thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your openness to share your life story and some of these vulnerable, points of your life. Without guys like you and without you individually, Jiu-Jitsu would not be what it is today. And for that, I truly appreciate. Where can people find you? If anybody wants to connect directly with you, if anybody wants to, I don't know, passing through UK and wants to hang out with you, and where are you at?
I appreciate allowing me the shameless plug, but so usually Instagram. The handle for Instagram is @EKBJJ. Open door policy. Everyone is welcome. No politics, no BS. Come in and train. Come and hang out. Just pop in and say hi. We do not have the politics of most schools. Unless you come with aggression or being a moron. But I know most people are respectful, and I'd love to see everyone. There's always a space on my mat, and it's a very, very fruitful place for those wishing to learn.
Phenomenal. Once again, let's wrap this up officially, but I do appreciate everything you do. Continue doing. We'll be sitting on the sidelines and just watching you grow and watching you making that impact. Gary?
Yeah, thanks so much. Something popped up. I don't think the people like you get enough credit for going to Brazil and then bringing it back. We always talk about the people that showed you those things there and where they're at now, but we don't talk enough about the people who came back and opened the doors for everybody else. Thomas was right. Without people like you, Jiu-Jitsu would look a lot different, I think. It wouldn't be the scale that it is right now. So thank you for that. And thanks for a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Thomas and Gary. I appreciate the space, as I said in the beginning. And it goes back to you guys too. I know you both Jiu-Jitsu practitioners as well, and we're all adding to this mix. You guys do an amazing job highlighting people like me and others who come onto your space, and you've created this environment, and man, it's amazing. And I wish you the best. And, you know, I hope your podcast becomes, you know, very successful for you guys. And I'm very happy that you guys make a living from this. And thanks for your contribution to Jiu-Jitsu as well.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's wrap it up for today. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will see you soon.
Beautiful. Peace.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.